He said,
Steve, what did you just say?
Scott Walker said the other day that he can take on ISIS because he's fought the unions in Wisconsin. And I'm saying everybody knows that Occupy and the unions are just totally like ISIS. We should just stop doing alliance.
When you take on the teachers' unions, you've taken on the world.
Well,
we are talking about ISIS.
Tell you about that.
ISIS, Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
Before,
brought to you. Sure, go ahead, Joey Hornbuckle. We're already recording.
Yeah, no, but before you say that, can I just give a shout out?
Oh, sure.
I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out real fast to the country of Chad. Because while Syria, Libya, and Iraq appear incapable of fighting ISIS without massive foreign intervention, Chad's armies are crushing Boko Haram and chasing them deep into Nigeria.
Well, let me give
Hey, hold on.
Let me give you a little bit of
You're not giving Cameroon's credit.
Cameroon
We're
deserves
talking about ISIS, bitches.
We're talking about Islamic terrorism.
Deserves credit.
You guys need to back up on it.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about Islamic terrorism.
We're talking about ISIS.
I just want to point out that it's interesting to me that in Africa they're taking on Boko Haram so well with very limited help coming from the Western world, and yet in the Middle East, when it comes to ISIS, it's like all hell's breaking loose. Nobody knows what
the
to do.
situation is completely different because for months and months and months, Boko Haram has just gone unchecked, and finally, these countries are starting to do something because they're crossing into their border. When Boko Haram was destroying people in Nigeria, Chad, and Cameroon didn't care about it until they crossed over the river. And
why are you blaming all in Nigeria? I mean, why don't you just blame the corrupt ruling class? It's not like they got a real democracy going there.
Well, I think Niger and even Cameroon and especially Chad, in my opinion, are just all doing so much more and literally chasing them into Nigeria.
Right.
And then it's like Nigeria's just standing there and not doing a whole lot.
Now they're making that oil money. Everybody's getting that oil money in Nigeria.
They postponed the election.
Yeah.
They postponed the election in Nigeria. It's crazy.
No, I'm kind of losing faith in Good Luck Jonathan, their leader.
I don't care about Africa right now.
Sounds like a Democrat getting
Of course, white supremacy. Let's go to some people who are little less dark.
Talk about the Middle East.
Little less darker people. I understand.
Because ISIS is the topic under discussion.
Okay, let's talk about ISIS.
Here's what I gotta say. I think it's all connected. Like the Islamic State, I've sort of viewed this,
it's a Shiite caliphate.
In this case, Islam being a sort of
no.
So what you're saying is
What
ISIS,
is
Al
Shiite
Qaeda.
I think it's a global phenomenon of. Especially coming from Islam right now, but there's definitely violence in plenty of other religions.
I actually think you're kind of wrong, and I think Brian's going to tell you why. I know we've all been over-talking him.
Guys, once again, the topic is ISIS. Specifically, something very specific. Obama has said, hey guys, hey Congress, restrict my authority a little bit. I want this kind of 3-year timeline for boots on the ground. I oppose any boots on the ground, American boots on the ground, against ISIS because, as history has shown, here's the background. Around 1980, Jimmy Carter, when the British were pulling out, Jimmy Carter's like, oh, we're gonna intervene in the Middle East and help them out. And we've been in 14 countries, or we've had 14 military adventures since 1980 in the Middle East. The Middle East is a shit show. We don't have any business being there. I know the place has oil, but the United States is putting out about as much oil now as Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter as much to us as a country. I know Israel's there and we have this alliance with Israel, but there is no national security interest I see that justifies putting boots on the ground. It's an Iraqi problem. It's a Syria problem.
But when they start cutting off Americans' heads, that's when it becomes an American problem.
I know it gets people riled up and they watch Fox News and they want to support the military-industrial complex and all the contractors to go out there and jack off and nut on Islamic terrorists.
Well I watch Al Jazeera. That's like my primary source of news. And if you look at what's going on, it cannot be ignored. I mean, ISIS is destroying World Heritage sites. They are enslaving people.
All right, well, I want to tell you something right now. I'm going to tell you guys something right now. Let me tell you something right now.
Absolutely correct.
If I was living in Syria right now, if I was born in Aleppo or something, I would probably be working with some Islam. I would be screaming Allahu Akbar. I'd be having all my faith in that dude in the sky, like just trying to kill Assad's people, because the shit going on there is straight fuck, dude. I mean, Steen knows.
How many people have died and how many people are refugees because of Assad? compared to how many people have died due to ISIS.
I mean,
and who are we talking about? We're talking about
It's
ISIS.
still a lot of people.
Assad has killed 100-something
Thousand
thousand
people,
if
right.
not more, and ISIS is more like in the tens of thousands. The thing is too that I'll throw in too about ISIS is that it's funny. The Republicans got very upset when one of these State Department officials made the remark that basically we can't fight ISIS through purely military activities. We have to focus on like economic things like that. And the thing is that in partisan politics aside, she was actually right, even if she didn't say it maybe in the best way possible. In that, number one, ISIS is there because of the situation in Syria with Assad and no, with Assad. He started ISIS, but anyway. But let me just fast forward.
Hold on.
I think both of them created the power vacuum, I would say. And then it's the border. I mean, that's why it came on the border.
ISIS was helped by both Assad and by former Ba'athist elements that used to be part of Saddam's regime in Iraq. When ISIS started going into Iraq, their support and locally was from the Ba'athists that were former Saddamist allies, and they were trying to get back in power too.
And why were they getting so much power? Because the Shia were dominating the country.
That's right. They the Ba'athists kind of deal with the devil.
Our nation building created a power vacuum. The Sunnis weren't being represented.
We locked up all the Ba'athist party heads, and they didn't on any charges at all. They really, were basically, locked up and held in prison for nearly a decade, and then eventually when you can't charge people with anything, you have to let them go, and of course they're going to be pissed off, and that's how ISIS was built. It was a direct impact of our intervention in Iraq. If Saddam Hussein was still in power, there would be no ISIS. There would Iran would not be closer to having a nuclear weapon.
But this comes down to the old thing about Europeans always and Americans always thinking the Middle East is better off with a dictator rather than having their.
That's racist. I mean that's nativism.
It's better for us.
That's saying that brown people don't deserve freedom.
I don't know if it's racist, but it's condescending as fuck.
But you know what? Brown people, black people, white people, they have gotten freedom by having their own revolutions.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. But if you're saying you don't support that, you'd rather Saddam and Assad
ISIS
be in
is trying
charge.
to have its own revolution.
I mean, here's the way we should have dealt with it is we should have left Iraq alone, not because Saddam should have been in power, but because there was no mass movement trying to topple him that he was machine gunning in the streets. But I think when some dictator starts machine gunning thousands of peaceful protesters in the streets, torturing them, killing and raping children, just putting out the videos like here's the children we fucking tortured because they painted some Arab Spring slogans, and we don't go in and say drone strike on you, but we can go hit some fucking wedding.
This is
interesting though, because Brian's saying kind of the complete opposite of you guys. It sounds like he's saying we should just get out of there entirely.
He is.
You can't.
But I'll let you clarify.
I mean, I don't think we should have boots on the ground. I think drone strikes can do a lot.
We already have like 300 or 3,000 people giving military logistic consulting to the Iraqi army about how the Iraqi army can potentially overtake Mosul or fight.
The Iraqi army is pathetic.
It is, and that's partially because of our fault. But just because George W. Bush broke the country doesn't mean that we have this unlimited responsibility to protect Iraq.
Like, really?
I
kind of
feel
like
it doesn't matter. No.
Kind of feel like if you mess it up, you got to clean it up.
Two things.
That's a great sounding idea.
Marshall Plan.
But when you have
there's no Marshall Plan for the Middle East.
Different presidents,
this is the thing, too.
You can't expect one president to be completely responsible for a previous president's mistakes. It's just.
But if you work at a hospital and the doctor before you messed up on someone's surgery, you can't just.
Yeah, they represent the same country. It's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be like, oh, that was Obama's America, that was George Bush's America. Don't look at me.
If America was any good at what we want to do, you guys would have a point. But Joey and Scott, you're acting like America is good at nation building. We aren't. We suck.
Yo, I'm not saying we should nation build. I'm saying we should just
do it.
Yeah,
find every. I'm saying
what should we do about ISIS?
That's
drone strike aside. Like we should have let the secularists have a chance.
We're not
years ago
about
when they had a chance. Now
I
think it's. I think it's a lot harder now.
What should we do about ISIS?
Now it's a lot harder. I don't know.
We need
let Steen talk.
Three things. Number one, I don't know why people keep saying like Obama wanted to leave Iraq, because he tried to get the Status of Forces Agreement, which was a deal that allowed us to legally be in Iraq with our soldiers for a longer period of time extended, and it was the Iraqi government that refused. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I'm just putting that out there, that it's not Obama that voluntarily chose to withdraw from Iraq entirely.
They want the people out.
The Iraqi government told us to leave and would not
So what should we do about ISIS?
Drop science books and arm the women.
Yes. Well, second point. Going back to that economic.
That's
thing.
my solution.
Going back.
For real.
Going back to that economic thing. If you look at any studies or any reporting they've done about what makes up the core of the ISIS military fighters, but the soldiers on the ground, not the clerics, but just like the run-of-the-mill soldiers. And the thing is, they tend to be economically disadvantaged. They tend to be young men, and also they tend to be radicalized by things like Syria and the Iraq War, whether it be Assad or whatever else. The thing is that that's part of the problem. That's what is partially leading to terrorism. The right wing has gotten this idea that they're fighting an idea or they're fighting a religion or whatever it may be, but that's the whole point. If we supported programs that would help the economic and social opportunities of these countries, ISIS would not be able to recruit as well. If you look at
what about Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
Is Saudi Arabia
they're
be wrong, though?
they're funding large
because
parts of
it's basically a
Qataris as
theocracy.
well. And if you look, I'll give you an example of a country that's been fixed with a terrorism problem is Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, for many, many years, there was a serious terrorism problem between the British government and the separatists there, the Catholics and Protestants and things like that. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was nearly killed in an assassination attempt by a terrorist organization, the Irish Republican Army. That's Ireland in Europe, a white.
But I think there's also a difference
Christian
between
country.
political and religious.
Well,
more
their violence is
theologically.
also political because ISIS wants to establish an Islamic caliphate, and
They already
want
have.
Islamic.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
They want an Islamic
That's racist.
government. So in a way, that's also political because they're competing with groups that don't want that hardline Islamic government put in place. But the point being is that right now you look at Ireland, Northern Ireland, they don't have that problem anymore because the British and the Irish and the EU and everybody else finally figured out that in order to get people to turn away from groups like the IRA, they needed to invest in their economics and their neighborhoods and their
But I think
livelihoods.
Ireland too is also that's
like
a lot more isolated too.
But at the
than-
same time, you say poverty does drive people towards violence and extremism, yes. But if you look at the leadership
and look at Jihadi John.
They're all
He's a
Western
rich
educated.
kid.
They're all
That's the
well off.
leadership, though. The
Jihadi
leadership
John's a
has
rich
to
kid
have
from
that-
Britain.
So there's
London.
something very
But who is more
attractive.
dangerous? Who is more dangerous? The individual uneducated ISIS fighter or the educated
The
commander?
individual.
The educated
Here's
ones
why.
are the ones who
Here's
got through
why.
9/11.
Here's why. Because
Those weren't some poor villagers.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people that call for
South.
violence and have extreme views.
Exactly.
I mean, if you go on the internet, you can go on like Stormfront and find a bunch of neo-Nazis that want to kill Jews or whatever in the United States. But generally, we don't have a problem with massacres of Jews because
Actually,
even
there
if
is.
people-
I was hearing a report about religious violence, and actually, Jews have had some of the biggest increases
That's
in religious
right.
violence
I'm
over the
talking
last
about
couple
the
years.
United States, though.
All right,
Yeah.
but
Even
let's
in the
get back to
United
ISIS.
States.
Let's get back to. I'm going to make
do
a pro-ISIS argument. I'm going to make a pro-ISIS
All right,
argument.
and then we
I
got to
just
wrap this
said it.
up. But
Oh
The
my
NSA
god.
is listening.
Oh my
let's hear it
God.
real quick. Let's hear this.
ISIS on healthcare, a very important topic to me, is very progressive. They want free healthcare for all, and I'm going to say that's better than what the United States can muster.
So there you go. Obama is a Muslim terrorist.
Hold on.
We finally confirmed it.
All right,
my
all right.
Let me say
All
one
right.
thing. Okay. All right. Okay. Another thing we need to do to de-radicalize the situation. Okay, we have the Kurds fighting, but what the Kurds are doing, they're doing some pretty off-the-wall bad things too. What they're doing, like some of the Arab areas, the Arab people who live in the Kurdish areas, when some of the Arabs got displaced, they want to go
It's the
back
same
to
sectarian
the
shit.
yes,
That's
the
what I
same
told you.
sectarian. They won't let the Arabs come in.
It's the
They're
whole
taking
it's-
Arab homes, so it creates. If you're an Arab who lives in the Kurdish area, you come home and now a Kurdish family
That's
occupies
right.
your home. What are you gonna do? You can be like, maybe this ISIS
That
thing
sounds
isn't
like
so bad.
Palestine.
Here
All right,
we go.
I want to wrap this up. I want to ask you
Last
guys
word.
Last word on this. Last word on this.
real quick. I want to ask you guys something though, real quick, because we got to wrap this up. Do you guys
Right.
think that there will be a pushback against ISIS? Against once people see in Iraq and Syria see what they've been doing and the kind of atrocities they've been doing, like
Yes.
all the kinds. Do you think there will be a
course.
pushback,
There's
a popular
always-
pushback against that will
There's
overthrow them?
always
Do you
a
think
backlash.
that's?
There's always going to be a backlash to terrorism, whether it be the IRA or ISIS or anything else.
You guys think it's going to be enough to
last-
overthrow them?
Yes. Last word on this. Iraq should
I
have
had
been
the
three
last word.
countries, but Joe Biden actually had a great idea with that. It should have been three countries. It should be a Kurdish North that we should recognize as an independent Kurdistan, and then the Sunni and the Shia regions.
You know what's wrong with that? All the
was Joe
oil is going to
Biden's
be in one
idea.
place. All the oil is going to be.
All the oil's in the
Well,
Shia region.
Right.
They cut. No, that's not true. There's oil in the north too. There's oil in Kirkuk, which would be Kurdish,
but
and
in the
there's
Middle
oil
East,
in
generally,
Basra,
the
which
oil's
would
in the
be
Shia-dominated regions.
Sunni.
And
Oil.
final,
Shut up.
Obama is wrong when he calls the Islamic State un-Islamic. They are
No,
a
he's not.
backwards kind of. Thank you, Bridgemont. They are a. I know you support the black guy. They are a backwards kind of Muslim in the sense that they're trying to recreate this version of Islam that they think occurred, or that they believe occurred, or actually really did occur at the time of Muhammad, which is a very violent time. And Muhammad pretty much made a living out of raiding other little camel caravans, and so robbing and spreading Islam at the point of a sword was kind of how Islam all kind of got started. So actually to
Not
go
necessarily,
back
but okay.
to
It
that.
doesn't sound like that when you go to Barnes & Noble and read the Quran.
Not necessarily.
Like, I don't see all
Well,
that.
if you read a biography on Muhammad by Karen Armstrong, you'll kind of see, and that's even a sympathetic account. So the Islamic State is this Islamic little place, and why not just let them have? Yes, it's backwards. Yes, we're going to still keep our policy to restrain them, to push Syria, to push Turkey, to push Iraq, to push Iran, to push anybody that's around there, to constrain them. We're going to do all we can to prevent anybody traveling there. We're going to have economic restrictions, but in light of that, why not? Instead of bombing them and giving them exactly what they want, all these jihadis, all these guys that are so Islamic, they believe in this kind of apocalyptic version of the world. And
What does it mean that they have a caliphate? What does that mean that they're?
that means that their religious authority is also their political leader, and that the laws, the Sharia, the time of Muhammad, this thing has been like reignited. This religious community has been reenacted, and it's a time when, in order for the end of the world to come in, Islamic theology, they need this caliphate to actually fight a battle against Rome, and Rome is kind of thought to maybe represent
The West.
Turkey, or maybe represent like America. There's different debates about in jihadi, lingo about who Rome is, but a lot of these jihadis really get a very erect penis when they even think about the idea of fighting Americans. This really gets them excited and is really a great recruiting tool. We've done so good to spread Islamic terrorism around the world. For example, by going to our unnecessary adventure in Iraq against Saddam Hussein when he had nothing to do with 9/11. But why not just let them have a little bit of their religious freedom, even though it's so backward and
Okay.
violent?
All right,
here's
I'm gonna
the
have to
only-
stop this tangent because first and foremost, ISIS is not Islamic.
That's
I
right.
know a lot of Muslims, have Muslims in my family,
So
very close
I
friends,
do.
but I'm sure you do. But what I'm saying to you, Islam, as I know it, as my family knows it, it teaches that you don't go around cutting people's head off
That's
because they
right.
don't believe what you believe.
ISIS
Yeah.
is the Westboro Baptist Church
Of Islam, exactly,
That's right.
exactly. And
Well, didn't the Westboro Baptist Church used to be the Catholic Church?
no,
During like the
They were
1700s.
they were-
Well, that was no. Actually, they were way worse. The Westboro Baptist.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're progressive compared to the Catholic Church
Yeah,
during
but-
the 1800s.
But what I'm
1700s.
saying, but what I'm saying is, Islam teaches that Christians, Muslims, Jews, Sabians, all those who believe in the Abrahamic religions are not to be unjustly murdered, and that is exactly what.
So how?
Oh, but
how could
see,
you
then that's the
justly-
thing. That's
how
wh-
could you justly murder a Christian according to Islam then?
When they raise a sword to you,
Yeah, if threatened.
If they
And
raise
you can
a
kill
sword
an
to you.
atheist anytime because they don't believe in or a fucking Hindu, a Buddhist, whatever.
Yeah.
Because
Oh that's true. Now that's true. Now if you're a Hindu and Buddha, you have the right to be enslaved. Now that's true. But I mean that's what the Quran says. But as far as other Muslims, Christians, Jews, all these people who traditionally
most of the world, we're good with you. It's just the
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, that's
let's just
I'm
kill
saying,
all the Buddhists and atheists.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying they say
get along.
They don't promote. They saying that you have the right to. They say that you have.
Let
the
me
right
ask
to,
you something, Bridgemon.
Yeah.
Since we were talking about how sectarianism is fucking up the Middle East, which is mostly Islamic, but there's a lot of sectarianism.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think would happen if that went away and there's a lot of unity across the whole region among Islam? Do you think it would go towards more backwards, Saudi Arabian theocracy, maybe ISIS style, more ISIS style? What do you think it would turn out?
I think
like?
okay. If you look at Egypt, is a perfect example of a modern Islamic country. I mean, for all the problems that Egypt has, the average Egyptian is more moderate and more progressive than the average Saudi Arabian or the average Yemeni.
So what makes you think it'd be like that?
Because
and they're also, they got military dictatorship. They were elected the Muslim Brotherhood after they. I mean, come on, dude. You know what's been happening there since
that election wasn't exactly free and fair as
Yeah, I know, but it still has support of a huge portion of the population, enough to,
I mean, but he didn't have. It wasn't like 70% margin.
Well, I have to say,
it was enough
a little
to win.
bit off topic.
It's like 40-something, 46.
Even so, I've made an argument to say ISIS should have their religious freedom somewhat, so we shouldn't actually put American boots on the ground. Let's just constrain them the way we're doing. Bridgman seems to disagree. What kind of policies do you want to enact against the Islamic State that we're not already doing?
Okay, ISIS has leadership. If you cut off the snake, you kill the body, and that's what we need to do. We need to actively engage ISIS leadership. If we take
Have we not done any drone strikes against ISIS?
Yes, but
we're already doing that.
Okay, I'm not gonna say we need boots on the ground, but we need eyes and ears in the area who provide. Yeah, we do, but we need more. We need our intelligence agencies to take a greater role and have less reliance on our military.
Obama is such a good Democrat. He's been getting the briefings. He knows.
I understand. What I'm saying is,
you just say Obama.
What I'm saying, we should focus our efforts on covert operations and not have some big drawn out war. I mean, you could have, you could take out ISIS leadership with targeted drone strikes, yes, and precision missions of special forces. You have special forces come in and kill these leaders or capture them. We can bring them.
And then they'll be martyrs. You don't think that's just going to embolden the next generation? Isn't that what seems to have been happening the last 10, 15, 20 years?
I think a lot of you guys are missing that.
I mean, everyone thought global terrorism, once we get Osama bin Laden, it'll be all right.
What you saying, Steve?
The ISIS strategy, continually and all along, has been to bait the United States and the West into a conflict. They're doing these things like these beheading videos and destroying these artifacts and these type of things. A lot of it's just for PR, to try to enrage us, to upset Europe as well, to get us involved. They want a reaction. It's a baiting technique. It's like
it's all a part of the prophecy that, to my understanding, most Muslims don't believe this, but this is what ISIS believes is going to happen, and they believe they represent this, that they've taken over the strategically unattractive city and area called Dabiq. And this is according to the Atlantic article that came out that really went into a lot of this. But it says, in the article, it says, after its battle in Dabiq, the caliphate will expand and sack Istanbul. That's the prophecy, or as many people are reading it. Some believe it will then cover the entire earth. Some believe it'll not cover the entire earth. But eventually an anti-Messiah, who's going to be called Dajjal somehow, is going to come out of the region of eastern Iran, kill a number of the caliphate's fighters until just 5,000 remain, cornered in Jerusalem, and then just as Dajjal is prepared to finish off the Islamic State, Jesus, the second most revered prophet in Islam, will return to the earth, kill or spear Dajjal, and lead the Muslims to victory.
You know what's crazy? A lot of Christians believe the same thing.
Right. But is that not the most amazing story?
Well, that's what the Christian right believes.
If you ever watch like one of these 700 Club,
Pat Robertson,
shows, that's what they talk about. They think that ISIS is going to lead to Armageddon.
And it's crazy because they believe the same thing. If you look at the Christian right and Islamic extremism, it's the same. They're fighting towards the same goal.
The Armageddon believers,
Yeah, that is why they want us to have all this intervention in Israel. Because
that's why I buy my Sarah Palin $35 T-shirt. I stand with Bibi.
But here's
I'm on the right side.
Here's the thing,
with the
Brian,
chosen people.
Because you're criticizing President Obama for saying that ISIS is not Islamic, and you're saying that's unfair. But isn't it fair to say that most Muslims don't believe this and therefore don't support ISIS, and it doesn't really represent Islam? Isn't that the point he's trying to make?
Because if you were to tell this tale to most of the Muslims I know, they'd be looking like, what the fuck are you talking about?
How many Muslims do you know that live in Syria or Yemen or Iraq, though, for one?
Actually, my sister, she spent extensive time in Jordan. She went to the King's School You know, that's like...
Well, even Jordan, I heard a member of Jordanian Parliament on NPR yesterday talking about how probably 30% of, like, college-aged...
Actually, they have done, I'll just throw in, they've actually done a study. I don't know if it was Gallup or one of these polling companies actually did a study.
I just wanted to interrupt. Sorry.
Douche.
For the percentage of ISIS sympathizers, or the views on ISIS favorable, unfavorable in these different Arab countries, in the Arab world, not the United States or the West. And it was at maximum, I believe, I don't know which country it was. I'll bring up the map and look it up. But hold on. But anyway, at maximum, it was about 30% in one country that had, the people surveyed had a favorable opinion of ISIS.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. 30%, that's a huge...
The minimum was about 9%. So pretty much in the Arab, Middle Eastern region, somewhere between 9 and 30% of people have at least sympathetic views towards ISIS.
Okay, now how many people in the United States, what percentage of people in the United States would you say have extreme far right views that the average American? I would say it's roughly
5%.
around. I would say around. It's more like 25, 30.
Are we going to compare those two?
Yeah,
It's like similar.
If you do a poll and you ask people, do you think Obama is a Muslim terrorist out to destroy America?
Yeah,
you're going to see 30% of the American populace believe that.
The Tea Party to ISIS.
I think it's a reasonable comparison. If the Tea Party had, can you imagine?
If you accept the differences.
Okay, let's
just say farmers.
Okay, I don't. If you were to have an area of the country that was substantially controlled by libertarian Tea Party,
like in Texas,
Kansas.
I mean, if you want to talk about Texas, look at the crazy shit that goes on there. I mean,
prison riots.
All right, so we do have to wrap this up. I just want to make sure, Brian, if we're able to get your points out.
Texas is about the size of ISIS-controlled territory.
But there is one more point I want to make, and the point I want to make is, I want to ask a question first. Why do so many young men and young women, why do so many people find ISIS attractive?
Because of
for the same reason
resentment.
that they find you attractive, Brian.
Thank you, Joey. And Steen, what's your answer?
Because of resentment, be it cultural resentment or economic resentment, they're resenting popular culture in the same way that
I think that's definitely part of it. And the other thing is that I think ISIS and the way they practice Islam does something that it unites this tribal aspect in humanity, where you get groups of people to fight against other groups, and it does it really well because it has.
I think all religion does that.
Yeah,
the better it does it, the more religious it is.
If they only had football, then they would have something else to.
And the people who are all into ISIS, they sincerely believe that they have a great form of social justice, and I'll have to say that there is some form of social justice, so some very strong form of social justice in Islam, because the ISIS does want healthcare free for all. There is the concept of charity. The concept, I think the way it's practiced in Islam is that 2.5% of anyone's wealth is given away to charity.
At least it's not 10.
They're one of those 501c3s, another nonprofit doing good in the world. Some fucking philanthropists.
Every year. So
like the Clintons.
Every year. So I just want to say that if you are a Muslim, and you want free health care, it might be a really place to immigrate to.
And they do. That's part of their popularity
I can't fit this in the whole
too.
video.
All
Wrap
right.
it up, Brian.
I just want to say freedom of religion, if we really believe that in America, we shouldn't put boots on the ground, and it's counterproductive anyway, so
Depends on what you... All right, go ahead.
All right, guys.